The next step for implementing sales tax is actually to apply it to customers, products, and/or sales transactions. If you do it just on sales transactions, you're making life hard, because if I were a customer, then every time I made a purchase, you would have to apply the sales tax for me. Instead, if you just realized that I was an Idaho resident or an Ada County resident, you could apply it to my customer record, and then any transaction would automatically have that applied. I think you can see how that's easy. Likewise, we have to do the same thing with inventory items, because in my case, I have both products and services, some of which are taxable and others which are not. If you're in an industry where everything's taxed or nothing is taxed, then of course it's going to be a lot easier. So I want to take you through basically 3 different steps this time. How do we assign taxes to customers? How do we assign a taxable status to products? And then we'll go into an actual invoice and show you kind of where the differences lie. Let's start off with assigning them to our customers. I'm going to go to my customer center, and I'll begin with the very top person. We need to go to Blaine Design, make sure that that is selected, and then I can move up to the upper right and say Edit the Customer. Once I get into this record, which is where we've been before, we can see basic information about the address first, and then we see additional information. And under additional information, on the bottom left side is where we get to have access to the sales tax information. We can have a tax code. For example, are they taxable or not taxable? Now, a minute ago, you'll say, I thought you said that was for products. Well, it is, but if we have a customer who purchases from us as wholesale and they're going to make things that are resale, they may not be taxable at all. Of course, we would have to get documentation on that and keep those types of records, which is kind of a different thing. But it is possible that we have records of people or customers who are not taxable. Generally, all of your standard customers are going to be taxable unless you only sell wholesale. Then, of course, what I have to do is set the tax item. Since Blaine Design is a taxable customer, now I just need to determine where they live. Do they live only in the state? Do they live somewhere in Ada County? Or are they out of state and therefore I don't have to charge any sales tax for them? Well, they actually are Idaho State clients. They don't live in Ada County. There we go. You will also notice, since we were talking about non-taxable, that there is a field here for a resale number. If somebody is a reseller, you have to keep that information as part of your records. Okay, let's say alrighty then, or an OK for Blaine Design, and that takes us back to our original screen. We would normally go through each of our customers and make sure that they were assigned the correct type of entry for sales tax or non-taxable. But I think you get the idea, so let's move on from here. The next thing that we would do is we would assign it to products. And to get to our products, I'm actually going to go to my Lists menu and choose my item list. The item list is growing a little bit, but the most important thing is we can see in the type column that we have several services. None of these are taxable. Services in Idaho aren't taxable, but inventory parts are. So let's go ahead and go into one of our inventory parts, maybe the Office 2007 CBT. I'll right-click on that, and I'll edit the item. We've been in this screen before when we initially created all of our items, and of course we're used to seeing some of the different pieces of information that are here. Kind of in the middle on the right-hand side is where we get to the sales price as well as the taxing. Is it taxable or not? Since this is a CBT product and it is a physical product, for me it is taxable. If it was a service, I would mark it as non-taxable. It's that easy. There's nothing else that you have to do here. We'll go ahead and simply close out of this by saying cancel. And I'll go ahead and close the list just so I don't have a whole bunch of windows open. I'll close my customer center as well. And that gets us back to our home screen. Once you've gone through all of your customers and you've gone through all of your items and made the appropriate assignments for taxes, now we can go ahead and look at an invoice. I'll create a brand new invoice. And since we were working with Blaine, we'll go ahead and choose them as our customer. And what you will see on the lower right is that the customer tax code is tax. So we have added that in as what they're supposed to be taxed at, if you will. So what do we need to do with this? Well, we need to take a look at some of our details. First of all, we need to add some items to our invoice. I'm going to purposefully add both some taxable and non-taxable items. I'll start by adding an actual class, which is a service only. and then that Office 2007 CBT that we were talking about. Now that we have some information, you can look all the way over on the right, and you can see that they are marked as taxable or not. Now this is interesting because I see that my service, which is a class, actually has been marked as tax. That's why normally we need to go through each and every list, go through every customer, yes, I hate to say it, and every product in our inventory to make sure these are correct. Because I can't tell you how big of a mess it can be if you do a month or so of transactions and then find out that either you did or you did not charge taxes or collect taxes for what you should have. It can get real ugly real fast. Well, fortunately, here in the invoice, I can make this non-taxable. Now, the reason they do that is because we said some people are resellers. So it may be that normally people buy something that's taxable, but if they're reselling it, we need to change that for a particular invoice. What I would normally do in normal circumstances is want to go back into my product list and actually make sure that all of my services were set to be non-taxable. In any event, now we have one non-taxable item and one taxable item. What we can do is we can see in the invoice itself that because Blaine Design has been set up to be taxed, it also has their default, which is Idaho state tax, 6%. I want to run through all of the options to show you how these work. If we assigned him Ada County sales tax, that's 1.5%, and it would be $6.36. If we assigned him to Idaho state sales tax, which is the correct one, that's 6%, $25.44. If he was out of state, 0. Let me get rid of this little dialog box here that's trying to help me out. And if he was an Ada County and an Idaho resident, then it would be 7.5% and a total of $31.80. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back so it is correct. And that just shows you that QuickBooks is doing all of the work. We set up the items, we assigned it to items and to people, but it's going to do all the math to hopefully make sure that we collect this correctly. At this point, all I have to do is click on Save and Close. And if I follow the same procedures with all of my invoicing and all of my sales, then all of my tax will be correctly collected, and then all I have to do is go out and pay it.